Chapter 39, The New Year by Wim Hof, December 2010. After a heavy period of snow here in Holland, daily cold baths, and running barefoot through the snow, I had one thing in mind: Hong Kong. Another opportunity had presented itself where I could travel to Hong Kong to attempt my world record again, encased in ice. The plane tickets were arranged for me to fly out over Russia, Siberia, most of China, and then eventually land on an island near a giant statue of Buddha. When I arrived, a 54-year-old Japanese man greeted me. His name was Sano. The temperature was warm compared to Holland. In Hong Kong, the temperature was 19 degrees Celsius, 66.2 degrees Fahrenheit, while in Holland it was negative 10 degrees Celsius, 14 degrees Fahrenheit. Despite the warmer weather, a lot of people were heavily clothed. They seemed like they had a natural disposition to feeling cold and were in desperate need of staying warm. I was walking around in a t-shirt and felt completely comfortable. As Sano guided me through the river floating through the city, he pointed out huge buildings with mesmerizing architecture. He escorted me to the giant entrance of a 5-star hotel. My room was relatively small, but the view was magnificent. I felt like a king. I saw many statues of Bruce Lee around the city. There were many photos that showed great respect for him as a martial artist. I feel that he died too young. His statues gave me inspiration to perform well in the beautiful city full of exotic palm trees and subtropical botany. 2 days after my arrival, the city was blessed with the heat of a warm summer day. It was a heat that could touch the solemnness of the soul. It helped me take my mind off the upcoming challenge. Sano took me all kinds of places. He was a very nice man who was a pleasure to be around. He was also extremely busy because he was helping to organize the events surrounding the countdown to 2011. Sano arranged a press conference focusing on global warming awareness, and I was his protagonist promoting the message. I didn't know much about global warming, but I tried my best to represent the issue. There were 15 microphones, 30 journalists, and 10 video cameras while I did my lecture on global warming. Here's what I said. I have no knowledge in politics, nor am I someone against the love of the world. I think that the children are our future and that the coming generations who will inhabit this world need to be raised in a world that is balanced. We as humans can protect ourselves against the changing weather conditions, but animals and plant life cannot. In the end, we won't be able to turn our back on the world and avoid the consequences of our actions. Exploiting our ecosystem to receive financial gain is just not worth it. I'm here to break a world record in the ice and therefore take the opportunity to raise attention worldwide. I would like to help broaden the vision concerning this delicate matter of global warming. The nature outside of ourselves directly influences the nature within us. We've become strangers to nature over the years because we're no longer living directly in nature. We are always spending money on clothes and surrounding ourselves with technological luxuries. We've lost our touch with nature. We've become blind in a way. Therefore, I'm thankful for the opportunity to express my thoughts with you and show you what can be done when you are connected to nature. Then it was time to immerse myself in a cold ice bath inside of a transparent container. Click, click, click. A photo shoot was happening outside of the container. My exposed body was being imprinted on the cameras of those around me. 2 days after that, the record attempt was imminent. The plan was for me to begin the full-body ice endurance record at precisely 10:20 p.m. When I would get out 1 hour and 50 minutes later, it would be 10 minutes into the new year, 2011. A little before the event, I sat down in the audience and tried to relax. The crowd was enthusiastic and many gave me admirable looks. After some dancers performed on stage, the announcer mentioned that the world record was about to begin. I walked up beside the announcer and he asked a few questions like, "How are you feeling? Are you confident that you will be able to break the world record?" My mind was only set on one thing: just do it. A few of the people lifted the Perspex box and I walked in. They set the box upright and began filling it with the ice. It usually takes between 5 to 10 minutes to fill it completely. The ice poured over my shoulders and I checked how my body was reacting to it. And this is what was happening inside of me. Full of determination, I charged myself up with adrenaline and dopamine. The adrenaline made me feel strong against the cold impact, and the dopamine was my pain reliever. When I was completely covered in ice, the walls of my cardiovascular system contracted and began their search to find a way to work as efficiently as possible without releasing heat. The veins around my vital organs contracted, and I steered the blood to circulate around them to keep warm. This keeps my core temperature stable. When all these conditions were met, the time to endure began. The better I was at keeping my core temperature stabilized, the longer I'd be able to stay in the ice. Sometimes I would begin to feel the cold in a certain part of my body, and by simply concentrating on that spot, I was able to transfer heat to that area to warm it back up. I have 2 important responsibilities when I am fully immersed in ice. I feel like they are the perfect example of mind over matter. The first is being able to keep the veins and arteries closed around the core. The second is redirecting heat toward parts of my body when they get cold. Both are done consciously. This reminds me of a 55-year-old man named Leonard who had once emailed me. He was interested in some of the articles that he had read about reaching the immune system. Leonard's body was completely paralyzed, except for his head. Despite Leonard's inability to move his body, he still suffered from chronic aches and pain. I visited Leonard and told him that there is power in man that can alleviate the pain. Simply direct energy to the aches and imagine them going away. It only took him 20 minutes to figure out how to do it, and ever since then, he's been able to relieve his pain using only his mind. The influence of the mind is powerful. When you are completely fed up with a situation, you are more willing to break through the conditioned mind. Leonard just needed a little push to get him going. Now, back to the story. So there I was, standing on a stage in front of thousands of people, all cheering me on. I was completely in control and winning the fight against the cold. Groups of performers danced beside me. Sometimes, the steps that they would take on the stage would shift the ice inside of the box, making it harder for me to stay warm. Every performance in the ice is a different one. I can't ever go in unprepared because if something unexpected happens, there's a huge chance that I will get hypothermia. I know a perfect example of this. The last time I attempted the record, I was in Tokyo. They had stuck a temperature probe in my mouth to monitor my body heat. It made it extremely difficult for me to breathe. My oxygen saturation felt dangerously low, and after an hour of this, I had enough. I made them take the probe out. Immediately, everything felt much better. And by the time I'd reached the new record time, my oxygen saturation was back to 100%. I had another problem with this particular ice record when I did it in Austria. The temperature outside was freezing, and when I broke the world record and they tried to get me out, they failed. The air had completely frozen all of the ice cubes together, and I had become part of an ice sculpture. After they pulled the Perspex box off of me, they needed to chop away at the ice with axes. So, like those times, I had to deal with something unexpected. I needed to battle against the ice as it massaged my skin from the dancers. I was determined to break the world record, so I pressed on. 1 hour and 50 minutes after being immersed, I had finally set the new world record. Big cheers from the audience came as I was freed from my icy tomb. It was finally time for a nice, warm bath. I went back to my hotel room, jumped in the hot tub, and fell asleep. Hours must have passed by because when I woke up, everyone who was partying in my hotel room was gone, and the wine that was given to me as a gift was empty. In its place, someone had left a basket of fruit. How kind. Regardless, I had succeeded once again. The following day, Santa took me to the Chinese Sea, and we spent the day walking along the water. When we got back to the city of Hong Kong, there was a surprise waiting for me. There was the Chinese wedding taking place, and they wanted me to be the guest of honor. It was a beautiful ceremony, but sadly, I wasn't able to attend the reception because my plane left at 11 p.m. We took the subway back to the airport where we had cheap but tasty sushi before we separated. Santa was really nice company, and he made the experience feel like a movie. We embraced each other and said our final goodbyes.